What's up, YouTube? It is your girl Latrina, and I am back again today with another tarot spread read. Starting off, we do get the Power card in the reverse. And this card in the traditional tarot does mean to me the strength card in the traditional tarot. But in the reverse, that speaks of the lack thereof, strength and power. And we also get the three of wands showing up in that first row as well, with the message of foresight on the very bottom of the card. And I'm assuming that maybe someone has lost in a sense of control or power, even due to something that they didn't or was not able to see or foresee. And then we get the Four of Wands, which gives the message of harmony on the very bottom of the card. And I'm assuming that someone's lack of strength and power um, maybe gave them, or maybe they, because this Four of Wands, it usually in the traditional tarot talks to me about, it can even be, speaking of a marriage or even like a home structure, something that was not seen about this home structure. Because we do get the solar plex chakra card coming out, which is your center of your power, in those energy nodes that we do have within our human makeup. This is sitting in the core, the very center of your energy, and it is where you birth the birth of creation and your ideas and your, this is like your creative center. Whenever you're talking about where you draw your energy from, it comes straight from your core. And this chakra does sit directly in the middle of your energy center. And it is where you do receive your power to create and to build and to manifest your daily activities in life. It comes right from the middle of your center. And then we also get the Nine of Cups coming out in that very first row, which does speak of wish fulfillment. Whenever you see it come out in the upright. But when this card shows up in the reverse, it is directly speaking of a lack of fulfillment or wish fulfillment. And this lack of fulfillment is affecting someone's actual creative abilities, their creation center, their power center. And it's probably even affecting someone's home foundation. Whenever we are discussing this power that we draw upon from our very, very middle base core power. This is the fire that drives us. And it is a very important part of creating in your daily life. This is what I mean is a very important part, your solar plexus chakra. And I know a lot of people, when they exercise, they focus on the core a lot, through sit-ups and through crunches and through anything that can directly target that core and that center of your being. And by this person or this individual lacking the power to create, lacking the power to um, set themselves up for any wish fulfillment. They actually set themselves up for a lack of fulfillment, for no wish fulfillment, whenever you don't have the power to create. And then, this power source, and I always have the firm belief that this is fueled by your integrity and and the truth that you operate in on this planet is what does charge this chakra up to create and to manifest things for you and to give you that wish fulfillment that comes from, even foresight. That power center will even give you the foresight, probably to maintain, this actual harmony within your home base. Because then we next get the temperance card, which to me, can speak of timing, and it can also speak of mixing two things together, trying to bring two things together, trying to harmonize, something. Someone was trying to harmonize something whenever you see this Four of Wands speaking directly of harmony on the card. And then also, this is like, the marriage card. It speaks of balance, and it does speak of stability, whenever you see that Four of Wands, because, whenever you're dealing in these types of studies and things and stuff, that them fours, they produce a square. And that is the most solid structure that, we've come to utilize on our day-to-day basis, that square. It produces a lot of structure, and even all the foundations that we pretty much work with in our current world, they deal with, the square. And the circle is also very solid structure too, but that square is something that you can build upon, you can stack, and you can create. As we were speaking of with this power card, being one of the creative centers in your body, it's a creative center, and it does even in fact influence your power upon this planet. That sacral solar plexus chakra is what does establish a foundation for you when you're dealing with power and strength. And then we get the attorney card showing up also in that first row with the message. Well, this is the double card with the message of the attorney on it. So that tells me that someone may be dealing with an attorney that is actually corrupt, a corrupt attorney showing up as the devil. And maybe this attorney maybe did advise them on some different things about receiving this structure and this balance. And maybe this attorney did, have some foresight to give them regarding someone's structure and someone's balance. And this attorney was also leading them and guiding them into temperancing and balancing out whatever they were working on. And it looks like they were working on something to do with, and it, either a marriage or a home, a foundation. This is going to be a foundation to me, because when you see that square form in any structure, it's going to be your foundation. It's going to provide a foundation for you so that you can continue to bring things together, that whatever you may be trying to manifest or create. That Four of Wands is the very foundation of this structure that we are talking about. And I'm assuming that this attorney had something to do with this structure that was being formed and fashioned, almost like a home builder. Whenever, this is what this is telling me in this first row. It looks kind of like a start to a home or even a family or a structure or some kind of thing. And this could just be speaking of one individual foundation. It doesn't have to necessarily be outside of oneself. This can apply to something, you know, directly within a particular individual. And I'm assuming that whatever this devil attorney or this attorney showing up as the devil was structuring, he was trying to build because he was looking out, in the future with this foresight card. He was trying to predict, and he was relying upon timing and also, the bringing of two elements or substances together. Whenever you see that temperance card, they didn't have the energy center. Their energy center wasn't charged enough, and that's due to their lack of truth that they operate in on this planet. Because when your word is bond, you can create from that alone. That can be your structure. Truth is a structure, and it will influence the power and the level of power that you have in your solar plexus, which is the very core and the very center of your being, to produce a wish. And I'm assuming whatever was being fashioned and formed by this attorney, they didn't get any wish fulfillment on that formation or on that foundation even. Because we do go from the Three of Wands to the Four of Wands. So that does directly tell me that something was being built. And they were relying upon, patience and timing and planning. That's what this Temperance card tells me. But they didn't have the power to pull this off. Probably because they didn't operate in truth. And when you walk around here operating in false pretenses and false anything, it's going to actually reduce your manifestation levels and your actual creative ability when you don't operate in truth. Probably talking about this attorney here coming out as the devil. Because then we do next get the Solitude card, which in the traditional tarot, this card represents the, and I'm thinking it represents the Hermit. Someone tried to put you, and I'm thinking this attorney was forming a foundation around you, and it was actually like a jail, that you were being placed around by being placed in solitude, intentional solitude, to try to bring you to a sense of ruin. Because we do get this Ten of Swords coming out in the second row with the message of ruin on the card. So that was what they were trying to form and build and work upon. And they thought that if they kept you alone and isolated, that would actually be, their strength. One of their devices and tools that were used to keep you isolated. It was an emotional tool used against you. And because we next get the Lovers in the reverse, which does, speak of a choice that someone had to keep you in solitude and to also try to bring you to a ruin. Because we now get the Star card coming out, and it has a blank canvas on it. It didn't come with a message. But the star alone is a message in itself. And I'm assuming that they may have wanted to isolate a person to prevent them from being a star, which you can't prevent a star from being a star if that's what they were born and created, for. And I'm not talking about celebrity status, I'm talking about a birth sign of a star. Someone was born as a star from their birth, God given right, then you can't ruin that. You cannot strip them from that foundation that the Creator has given them from birth. Solitude is only going to be, serving their best, it's going to service them instead in the long run. Whomever they did try to isolate and form this foundation around, by stripping them of their solar plexus energy, trying to bring them to a ruin. It was a choice made to do this to a star, and that could be speaking of anyone that was born structured or born, to walk in any type of personality or character traits that the Creator has given you. No one can take that from you. No one can even strip that foundation from you that is God given. Because next we get the suffering and silence card. And I'm not seeing any characters showing up in the read yet, besides this devil attorney and this star. And there was a choice made upon this star individual that was to bring them to ruin and to reduce their power, supply, which does come from your, it comes from your sacral chakra, which is the card that we got in this first row. And probably, anyone to try to influence another person's sacral chakra, that's like treason. That's something that you cannot oversee. You cannot look past that fact that this attorney, showing up as this devil, actually did play a part in trying to form and fashion maybe, something regarding this law. Because if it was not regarding the law, then this attorney would not have come out. So this was a legal matter and an attempt to ruin an individual showing up as the star. And they are now suffering in silence due to whatever plans and formations and foundations that they tried to barricade around you. Whatever structures and premises and cases and allegations and whatever partnerships and alliances was formed against you. That was designed. It was by design from this attorney. And the devil, he worked with the devil, or he shows up as the devil. Because we now get the Two of Swords showing up in this third row, which does directly have the message of protection on the bottom of the card. And I'm assuming that you may be protected from these partnerships and alliances against you. And you're also going to be protected from suffering in silence. I'm assuming that, due to this isolation and due to these boundaries and borders and foundations that were placed upon you, that you did suffer in some sense, some form or fashion. Suffering was involved in this attempt to ruin you. There was a lot of suffering that they tried to put upon a person by working in teams and partnerships. You're protected from that alliance and partnership that's coming from this law firm or this attorney. They had a strategic plan. But you remember what I said, if you're not operating in truth, you've just reduced your power down, because truth will propel you into whatever gains that you're trying to reach. And we now get this Queen of Wands coming out. And you know, this Queen of Wands is the first character to show up on the deck. And so I'm assuming maybe she did have a partnership and an alliance with an attorney that you were protected from both of these individuals, this Queen of Wands, and you were also protected from this actual devil attorney that tried to form and fashion all these restrictions around you and borders and isolation. And he even worked on your sacral chakra. Whenever you see that Queen of Wands showing out, they did a little magic to manifest, you know, whatever they were trying to produce. They did a little magic to produce that suffering and silence that you endured. And being even isolated and alone from these teams and partners that was formed against you. You were blind to these things. You weren't even aware of these alliances. And you weren't even aware that this Queen of Wands was trying to bring you to a ruin by working with an attorney to affect your foundation and your home. And she probably even affected your relationships, you know, whatever relationships. Because now we get the Eight of Swords coming out in this third row with the message of freedom from drugs on it. And to me, you know, that Eight of Swords, it speaks of restrictions. And it can even be speaking of an incarceration or some kind of, you know, lockdown. And this can be a mental lockdown, or this can actually be representing a real deal, you know, imprisonment, like jail, even a mental ward. That Eight of Swords can be, you know, imposing upon an individual that tried to trap you, you know, entrap you and ruin you, bring you to ruin. That's exactly what was worked upon by this Queen of Wands. She wanted to ruin someone. And this is what's going to ruin her, you know, a need to be free from drugs. Probably dealing with some type of addictions and things and bondages. Whenever you see that freedom from drugs come out, and usually I take it in a very good sense. You know, like, oh, somebody maybe kicked some habits, or they actually were set free from some type of bondages and things. But I'm assuming that this wasn't the case, because someone is suffering in silence with this current energy that we're reading on. And they came right out with this Queen of Wands, whom is probably suffering in silence, probably with some addictions and bondages, because that Eight of Swords speaks of imprisonment, you know, and it doesn't have to be jail. It can be imprisoned to a drug. You know, when you become so reliant and addicted to a particular substance, it will force you into suffering. You know, and I'm assuming that these teams and partnerships, the only importance out of that row and that third row is this protection card to me. Because whatever you weren't able to see and whatever attacks that were coming at you, swords all in your back in an attempt to ruin you through isolation, an attempt to ruin you through stripping you from your foundation. And when I say that, I'm talking about like your actual home, the place that you know, reside. Someone tried to actually strip you off that foundation by getting you put out. I'm assuming that this Queen of Wands worked on that also. You know, that was a part of their foundation, their structure that they were building and working on with this attorney. Because next we get the sacral chakra, which is the very next energy center after the soul, wait, is this the sacral? Yeah, that's the sacral. And then this one is the solar plexus. Okay, so that's directly in the middle, and then this one is directly up under it. So they were trying to affect your whole entire movement. Because if you don't have this aligned, if these two aren't aligned, your sacral chakra and your solar plexus chakra, then you're not going to be able to create anything upon this world. And there's many ways that you can align these, through prayer, through meditation, through breathing, through exercise, and through the foods that you eat, and through your beliefs too. They can also align, and then black magic can knock you off of alignment when we're dealing with these energy sources and energy centers in our body. Black magic can knock those off. But you were protected from that. So whatever magic or whatever chance or whatever tactics that they use to try to set you off, your foundation, and set you off course, set your whole entire body off course, because next we do get the actual hermit coming out, which is the isolation card. Also, they both have the same meaning. This solitude card, they tried to put a star in solitude. Whenever you see this hermit and this double isolation meaning. But this next hermit comes out in the reverse. So they weren't able to isolate you as a war tactic. That was like a war tactic that they were using, trying to get your energies off balance, trying to get all of your, probably harvesting off of your sacral chakra and your solar plexus chakra also. And I'm not sure of how they do that in today's world, how somebody can draw upon another person's energy nodes. I have no clue on that. But then we get the Three of Pentacles card showing up in the reverse, which does also confirm this partnerships and alliances, because this card speaks of teamwork. And when it's in the reverse, that's the lack thereof. They couldn't come together as a team. The team collapsed when it came down to your solar plexus chakra, because you was already grounded from birth. You was given those seeds, and those were the first fruits poured upon you. And that's something that they were blind to, that these were your first fruits that was given to you from God above. This Queen of Wands was blind to that, and she wasn't even protected from these. These things backfired on her, is what it's showing me. And now she's suffering in silence because she doesn't want anyone to know that this stuff did come back upon her. Whatever she did work upon in the dark. And with a team also. The team fell apart whenever you see that card showing up in the reverse. The team fell apart trying to put you in isolation, in solitude, and even into hermit mode. And this hermit has released himself from this isolation, because he does come out in the reverse, following right after the solitude card. So they were successful in putting you in solitude, but they didn't know that solitude was going to improve upon your strength. It was going to help you get back in touch with yourself and your energy nodes and your it was going to balance you out more than anything. This solitude and putting you into this hermit mode, it gave you more balance, more focus, and even more energy was created from these actual team efforts and teamwork, that they didn't, the team didn't even come together that well. And then we get the Five of Wands showing up in the reverse with another message of attorney on it. So we now have two attorneys on deck. And that Five of Wands speaks of conflict. Whenever you see it showing up, these two attorneys are probably in conflict about something, not working. The teamwork didn't work. That's what they're in conflict about. It's created conflict now. the fact that their team efforts and that their vices and their tactics and their spell work and even, anything, you were protected. You was actually protected from the things that you could not see. And there's a prayer that speaks of this, and it's the Lord's prayer. Our Father who art in heaven. And he says to protect me from those that trespass against me, seen and unseen. And I tried to teach this prayer to my daughter because people just aren't praying anymore. They're not as religious as the world used to be. The world has just transitioned out of religion, and I'm assuming that the new age has taken over this planet, which, is just a sign of the times. And it's something that's in no one's control. No one's in control of the consciousness that falls upon people. Oh my gosh. And then we get this mental conflict card coming out in the reverse. And whenever I see this card coming out in the reverse, it lets me know that someone is unstable in all their ways. And it starts from the thoughts down, because everything manifests from what you think. And, if anyone knows anything about the 7 Hermetic principles and, vibration, correspondence and things like that, those things, mentalism is one of those Hermetic principles. And I'm going to tell you this, that someone's in extreme disarray and even brought to anger over the conflict has arisen between these two attorneys, one showing up as the devil and then one showing up with the 5 of Wands. And so I'm not sure if these two attorneys are battling or if this one attorney is the one that's trying to come out of conflict. Someone's trying to come out of conflict. Someone's trying to, because of your protection. Because that card comes right out in the same row. It's your protection that actually, it guards you from these attacks, from these 5 wands coming at you. And I'm assuming that, that you being placed in isolation and hermit mode and solitude, it worked in your favor because there was a team that did come against you, confirming the 5 of wands. And there you go with the confirmation there. That's confirmation in itself. Because we also get the Page of Wands coming out, which is the message about these actions. Someone's in mental conflict about these messages and even up into anger. Anger has set in about this message and about the message about these actions that was taken against you. And then we get the 7 of Wands coming out in this very last row. And it does bring the message of courage on the very bottom of it. It speaks of courage. The 7 of Wands does. And then it also speaks of protection to me whenever I see it showing up in the tarot spread, in the traditional tarot. And then there's a confirmation of that protection showing right up here. You're protected because of your courage, and even your integrity and your truth protects you. Because when you operate in truth, it's going to form and fashion a protection field around you, a no-go zone, just from operating in truth. Because, see, that truth is going to power your centers, your energy centers, your sacral chakra, right along with your solar plexus chakra, where your fire is birthed, and I'm sorry to continue to repeat that, but there's not much more else I can say about those two chakra cards coming out in the read. It's brought somebody to anger. That's one thing I do know. And someone's even struggling with some mental issues. You will be getting informed about this. You will be getting some information because you've been courageous and you've been blind. for the whole time. You were blind, but you was also protected from anything that you couldn't see. And you was protected from this individual suffering in silence, because we do get that card coming out. This individual was suffering in silence. And then we get another Three of Pentacles showing up in the very last row with the message of show me your ID on the card. And that Three of Pentacles speaks all day long of teamwork. And for it to show up one in the reverse and then one shows up in the upright, it's a little, confusing to get these two showing up together. Both of them are the same card. Both are the Three of Pentacles, but one is in the reverse and one of them is in the upright. And I'm assuming that whatever teamwork that did fall apart, someone's now working as a team to get the proper information, being put forth. Someone's putting some team effort into that plan, is to get the correct information out whenever you see that showing, show me your ID. And that correct information is pissing somebody off to the max. And it's making them mentally unstable about this information that's dropping. The information that's dropping about your protection and about the courage that you had to muster up from your energy centers. You had to use two of your strongest energy centers to actually protect yourself from these attempts and attacks and foundations and hopes to ruin you, bring you to ruin.